morning. It's really great to be here. Obviously, we love coming to the Combine. It's a critical part of the scouting evaluation process and sets the tone for our season. Thank you guys for being here this early part. I feel like Seinfeld's setting up for Banya. It's a good opening, but looking forward to your questions. Love it. Starting off with that, D'Amico's a special human. We got to sit in meetings with the coaches, and I'll never forget the first time I got to really hear him lead in front of a room. It was a turnover meeting, and we weren't generating turnovers. And he starts talking, and he's talking about football scheme and stuff like that. And he's like, guys, it's not about scheme. And he just goes into this passionate, and you see what leadership looks like. I'm like, that's what that looks like. I got to have a lot of conversations with him about, preparing for the opponent, things like that. Myself, Demetrius Washington, who used to work with me, he's a perpetual learner. He continues to push the envelope, and not in terms of what he knows, but what he wants to know in the future. I would bet on that guy to be an incredible head coach. He's just going to keep evolving, keep improving. I was so proud of him when I got to Minnesota. He had interviewed, so I got to see the Zoom. And I texted him, and I was like, no matter what you end up doing, I'm just proud of you. Just keep being yourself, and you're going to be a head coach whenever you want to be, whether that's with our team or any other team. A lot of things. I got to answer a similar question just before. One of the best parts about when Kyle and John got there was they allowed us all to be ourselves. And so now, fast forward, now I'm a GM and I work with Kevin. In our exit interviews, a lot of our players said the same things. This is the most fun I've ever had because you guys let us be ourselves. This job's hard enough. We got to put in a lot of time, a lot of effort. And having people have to try and act a certain way about some, different version of a football guy they're supposed to be, it takes away from the goal we're trying to chase here. So that's one of the best things I learned there from Kyle and John, and really that's them. Second was just their relationship, their collaboration, knowing to win at a championship level, they got to be connected. People always say alignment, all these fancy words, and what does that mean? When it's tough, when you've lost for 2 years in a row like we did in 17 and 18, not backing down from a plan. And showing up in 19 being like, hey, we think we have a championship team, and we all knew it in that building. Our joke was from Mobile to Miami. That's what we did that season. That's something I'll never take. I'll never lose that relationship and all the education I learned that year. And just seeing great players, great coaches up close. So the first time I hear Kevin, I know what that sounds like because I'm around Kyle Shanahan. I know how really intelligent he is and how he sees big picture. So listening to Kevin was just like, okay, here we go. That's a start. I know what a head coach looks like. And so all those experiences, also my relationship with Brian Hampton, Parag Marate, the connection I got to build with Rand Carthon. Think about the people that I got to be around. Rand Carthon, Mike McDaniel, Robert Saleh, D'Amico Ryans. There's no fluke as to why I'm up here on this stage. It's because I kept an open mind and learned from those guys, and that's ultimately why I got to be here. So I'll be forever fortunate for being in that building. Yep. Sure. Yeah, there's no right way. I think what you want to make sure that you build in the draft because the access to the best players, the players with the ceilings typically is in the draft, right? Free agency does happen, and there are some players that shake free in free agency, but now every team wants that guy. Now it's a competitive market, and now the prices go a little bit higher. Now in the draft, you have a chance to get them, build them, grow them in your building, build a culture with them. But the issue is, as a GM, my job isn't to just hit on draft picks. This isn't some dartboard I'm just throwing. The job is to build a championship team within the time window. So yeah, if I get fired in 4 years and all my picks hit after that, I don't get to go back and say, hey, look at all those people I drafted. It's my job to put it all together within the same time frame, same horizon. So it's really just a lot of different lessons that I've learned from various studies I've done, trying to put it together, but there is no one right way. It's just a lot of smart, intentional decisions that you make. Yeah, that's a tough one. I know that ultimately your first path to the playoffs is winning your division, right? So you never want to obviously make your division stronger. But ultimately, the best path I have to the playoffs is putting the best team on the field. And so that's where that starts. Brad and I have a really good relationship. I said earlier, I'm not trying to – you can do trades where both sides kind of know what their interests are and both can win. Sometimes you're trading time value. So my needs might be more current. His needs might be future. So you can come together and trade a player for draft picks and have that make sense. There's no reason that you need to run people over or whatever. I plan on being in this business more than 1 year. I want to be able to pick up the phone and call people and do those things. So that's how I dealt in this business. That's how I dealt in Wall Street. I wasn't the guy that was going to call people up and try and see when they were vulnerable or convince them to do something they want to do. I have a vision of what I think player value is or whatever, and I'm trying to do that. And if you have your vision and that can work, then let's meet together in the middle. If not, then we'll go our separate ways and do all alternatives. I'll say that one more time. To trade within the division. I can't answer that for everybody. I know for myself, it's one of those things that, I get it. It's hard. When you make these decisions, you run the risk of being second guessed and just understanding that there's uncertainty to all of it. But I think as these new GMs come to the league, they've grown up in a world where these trades have happened more frequently. So I think they're a little more used to the uncertainty. And ultimately, look, I know I'm going to get second guessed for a lot of things I do. And ultimately, I have to be able to sit on the couch when it's all said and done, minimize regret, and be okay with what I did. And I was intentional about trying to chase this championship. And if it doesn't work, I'll wish the next guy the best. I'll thank the Wills for changing my life, and we'll move on from there. I can't say enough great things about that addition. It's not just the football mind, which it's special. As I talked about when we got our list together, I'm always going to be a numbers guy, so I'm always going to go look at the results of his defenses. And they played a lot of good, efficient football with a lot of young players, and that's something that really drew us to him. And then you talk about the leader, how passionate he is. He's just an energetic, great. He fits so well in our culture, where our culture is positivity, it's passionate, and he fits really well into that. We need the leader, we need the football mind, we need the developer. We also need the personnel guy. He has a really extensive personnel background. So it's not just about the players we draft this year or in free agency. It's about reshaping our vision for the roster going forward, not just to compete in today's NFL, but where it could go. He's the type of thinker that I need, combined with Kevin, that'll help us do that. That's a great question. It's tough. Ultimately, you don't know. And so that's why you need to get a lot of data points. And if 80 of your data points are pointing in one direction, you're going to assume that it's likely good information, but you're not always sure. But ultimately, you want to make sure that you weight the information by its believability, by its quality. Do you want to weight one snap in a Senior Bowl versus 3 years of film study? All those things go into it, and we're just going to try and make the decisions the best we can. But ultimately, the best part about our process is, and what's great about not being the analyst anymore and being the GM, is it's not just drafting them, it's now getting them in your building, developing them. So seeing what areas they need to improve, and having somebody like Tyler Williams and Josh Hinks say, we're going to get them in the weight room, we're going to improve this thing, and we're going to get that player to be the best version of himself. So that's what's great, to be so connected on both ends of it. Some of those conversations start with, the interview process. I mean, hey, how would you imagine this roster? What are your different ideas? What's so great about him is he's very specific about why he wants what he wants, but he also understands the market dynamics. So he understands that, hey, yeah, I could go in and just say, I need the best corner, the best pass rush, the best things. But he also knows from a personnel standpoint, those are the things that everybody else wants. So he's designed defenses and systems. Really, it's systems that allow to account for those things and really be able to overcome them. Sure. It's let's go all the way numbers. Let's go full numbers. So we talk about necessary and sufficient conditions, right, in math. And so a necessary condition is having a starter level quarterback, a quarterback of above certain threshold. Now that doesn't mean for sure you're going to win. That's not the only thing you need, but that is one of the things you need, right? So having a good level quarterback is a necessary condition. Kirk quarterback meets that threshold, so we know that. Okay, well now, how do you build the rest of the team around him to make sure that you can win in that way? Different quarterbacks require different things around him, but we know that for sure he meets that threshold. How long does he meet that threshold? Those are things we got to answer. Is there a chance to add somebody maybe with different skill sets? Those are all questions we got to answer, so there's not one right way, but I do know one thing. I know he is good enough. He meets that first threshold, and that's a question that a lot of people can't answer with a yes, so we got to make sure that we treat that in the proper importance that it is. That's tough for me to say. I appreciate the question. I don't want to. I feel like either way, answering that question would be just kind of ignorant on my part, and I don't want to really step into that. Dalvin Cook or Dalvin Thompson? Dalvin Cook. Again, starts with having a great player, great leader. Otherwise, we're just going to try and the NFL, you have a lot of constraints, salary cap, different things, and we're trying to figure out how we can operate in those things. But you always start with a great player, a great leader, and we'll go from there. So I said it earlier, I don't want to be the Vikings GM without that guy on our team. So it's a high priority. We got to make sure that we do it in the order that we can do it in, obviously given our, all our other decisions we have to make. But it's not just having an elite player, because I think people, maybe they appreciate the talent, maybe they don't. The human, it's even better. Seeing it up close every day, he just wants to win. When I met him, the first time I met him actually, we walk in the building and I made a joke about something else that was happening with the wide receiver at the time about their contract, and I was like, I just laughed. I say, we won't have any issues. And he says, I just want to put wins on the board. Didn't smile. It wasn't really like this ha-ha thing. It was the way he said it. That's the guy you see on Sunday who won't turn down double teams, whole defense is designed to stop him. He's trying to put the Minnesota Vikings on his back, and he wants to win a championship. When you have people like that in your building, you try everything you can to not let them out. Sure, it's a position we just like every other position we look at. We have a lot of confidence in Brian Asamoah, who's also in that room. Troy Dye is a very good player. William Kwenku, who showed some really good things on special teams. So we're going to take a look like we do at every position. But we have decisions to make just like everybody else does there. Yeah, look, we love Dalvin. Same thing. Whenever you have good players in your building, good people, you want to do everything your best to keep them. Obviously, we have a lot of decisions to make, so we're trying to buy ourselves a little bit more time. But if he's listening, if he comes back, I'll make sure I get him my shoe plug that he always asks me for. He's a great guy, great player, and we love him. Sure, it's critical. I think a lot of times, I want to be specific though. People use that word character, and it's this catch-all term. I'm not here to judge anybody. That's not our job. It's like you said. Do you have respect for your teammates? Do you have respect for yourself? Do you have respect for other people? Then also, are you driven to be the best version of yourself? It's hard. You show up in the NFL as a GM. I just appreciate on Wednesday they're going to show up and hit a sled. On Thursday, they're going to show up and do individual. All those things, the grind, the minutia, it takes a certain type of person who loves that process, lives that process, and then literally views every chance that they get to hit that sled as a way to get better. It's an incredible thing, so you want to make sure you have as many people in your building as you can that are wired that way. I'm sorry, can you speak up? It's hard to hear, so I think I understand what you're saying. Yeah, it is always value, right? At the end of the day, it is a people business, and it's about building relations and connections. Every time I walk by that elevator bank down there, I think about my chance meeting with Andrew Berry, and ultimately that's partly why I'm up here. So I think that is critical, because at the end of the day, people make decisions. They don't make decisions on resumes and what it might say. It's the person they met, looking them in the eye, knowing what it would be like to work with that person. There's a lot of talented people in the NFL, college, who want to be in football. what else do you have to set yourself apart? Can you fit into a culture? So those things do matter for showing up to these things for sure. Say it again? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think ultimately you're considering known versus unknown, right? Free agencies are more known, right? Players they played this year in this league 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it is. Sorry, at least 4 years or whatever it is, and you know what they are. Now draft picks, they have a lot of variance, right? They could be better than that free agent. They could be worse. And how does that fit into your time horizon? So there is no set way to value them. You kind of look at everything probabilistically, honestly, and then see how that fits within your time horizon, different needs, different positions, and not just what do I need today. You got to look ahead. What am I going to need in 24 and 25, all those different things. And ultimately, it's just this beautiful puzzle we all try and solve together. It's why the job's so fun, but there are no right, simple answers. Thank you, guys.